Most things in my life, I've said, I'm going to do this. I want to do it. And I'm very clear on it. Writing a book was actually the opposite. I go in for this psychic reading. Hi, I don't know. My life has lost momentum. I'm stuck. What do you got for me? She goes, you're going to be unbelievably successful on a global scale, but you need to be seen. And I couldn't sleep that night. And I'm like, she's right. And I woke up that morning and I turned to Chris and I was like, I never ever thought I would say this, but I'm going to write a book. I need to be seen. I felt like there was something that was missing. And so I made a promise to myself when I was writing that book. I was like, I'm also going to make my word of the year content. I'm going to produce an absurd amount of content and I'm going to allow the world to really see me for the first time. And I'm going to see what happens.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Jen Gottlieb. Jen is an entrepreneur. She's an international speaker, and she's the host of the I Dare You podcast. She's also the author of the brand new book. It's called Be Seen. The cover looks amazing. If you're watching the YouTube version right now, then you see that beautiful cover. The listing on Amazon looks amazing. The website looks amazing. Like the branding, we're going to get into that later in this episode. It's just A++. She's also the co-founder of Super Connector Media, an award-winning training, events, and online education company. She's got past lives as a VH1 host with a 5-year stint there, as well as Broadway. And I mean, if you've been to any events, like I feel like every time I see an event advertised, you're on the speaker lineup.
Lately, yeah.
And so we're gonna talk about that.
If you've been anywhere, you may have seen me.
So I'm excited. We're going to dive in. We got a lot to cover when it comes to speaking, when it comes to PR, when it comes to being seen and creating your personal brand. So a lot to unpack here. Jen, welcome. Great to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. I just love hanging out with you. So this is going to be super fun.
Well, it's been a minute. We got a lot to catch up on. So
I know.
Let's dive in with book stuff. So, I mean, why a book? How do you see this book fitting in with your brand, with your business, with kind of the whole thing?
You know, I never really wanted to write a book ever until I did, which is crazy. So it wasn't always a dream of mine. I wasn't like, I'm going to be an author. I'm going to write. With most things in my life, I've said, I'm going to do this. I want to do it. And I'm very clear on it. Writing a book was actually the opposite. I used to say, oh, I don't think I want to write a book. I don't think that's me. I don't think I'm an author, until actually the introduction of this book tells this story. And I don't think I've told it on a podcast yet. And I will tell you because it's actually a little crazy. So I live in New York, as you know. And a couple of years ago, I was feeling a little bit stuck on like a Saturday, and I just was feeling like nothing was flowing. Like I did not feel the momentum. I was feeling like a little bit down. And I said to Chris, I'm like, I don't know. I just feel stuck. I feel like things aren't moving. I feel just not good. And he's like, let's go for a walk. We always go for walks whenever we don't feel good or we feel good or we're fighting, whatever. Walks are amazing. Walks fix everything. So we're walking in the West Village and we walk past this like little hole in the wall psychic situation, like a psychic's office. And I have never had a psychic reading in my life, Chandler, because I'm scared of psychics. I don't like the idea of someone being able to tell me something about my life. And if it's bad, I don't want to know because then I'm going to be worried about it. But of course, Chris is like, oh, come on, let's go do a psychic reading. It'll be fun. Like, I dare you. I'm very like dares. I take very seriously. Screw it. Fine. I go in for this psychic reading. This is before I had an idea to write a book. This was anything. I sit down. She has no idea who I am. This is at the time we owned our PR agency and we were teaching people how to get in the media. And I sit down and I'm like, all right, hi. Like, I don't know. My life has lost momentum. I'm stuck. What do you got for me? And she goes, you're going to be unbelievably successful on a global scale, but you need to be seen. And I'm like, be seen? I'm so seen. Like, lady, you don't even know what you're talking about. I got so mad. I was like, we help people be seen. I have a course called the Be Seen Accelerator. Like, that's what I do. I'm so seen. She's like, I don't know. All that's coming to me is be seen. There's a wall up. You're not being seen. There's something that needs to be seen. Be seen. I go home and this woman's voice is like radiating in the back of my mind. And I couldn't sleep that night. And I'm like, she's right. Because while I was helping other people be seen and I was creating lots of content, I still had like a filter up. I still wasn't letting people in. There were still stories I wasn't telling. I wasn't being completely and totally authentic. And I woke up that morning and I turned to Chris and I was like, I never ever thought I would say this, but I'm going to write a book. I need to be seen. And here was where it gets cray-cray because you know all about the book writing process, Chandler. The book was never called Be Seen. Now, I didn't even think about that for a second. The book was actually the proposal that I wrote. Everything around the book was all around Super Connector. The book was supposed to be called Super Connector. That was the proposal that went out that got bought by the publisher. That was the title of the book. I never felt great about it. I had this really cool experience with a couple of my friends, Amy Porterfield, Gabby Bernstein, Marie Forleo. We went to Soho House. We were talking about book stuff. And I'm talking about the name of my book. And Gabby wrote the foreword. She goes, Jen, the name of your book is not Super Connector. I'm like, I know, but I can't change it. And I don't like it. And I know. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And she goes, what do you help people do? And I'm like, I help people be seen. And she was like, that's the name of your book. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, The Psychic. And I put Be Seen on the thing and I called the publisher and I was like, my book has to be called Be Seen. This is the answer to The Psychic. I was being seen. And during that time I had built this following and I had started doing the Instagram lives with no makeup and I started being seen. And I started telling all the stories in the book and it's all about being seen. All the dots connected. And I was like, that's what this is. So
yeah,
boom, the clarity came not from a thought, from a hell of a lot of crazy, messy action and just doing a lot of really out of the box things and just doing it without being clear.
That's cool. I like that a lot. And I missed that. You mentioned a couple people. Who was it that said, hey, that's it?
I'm pretty sure it was Gabby. So okay, Gabby cool. Says it was her. We were all sitting there together. I did. Gabby says it was her. So okay. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to take her word for it. And then she wrote the foreword. So I'm going to give her credit. It could have been Marie. I think it was Gabby.
Oh, that's funny. Gabby is the only one of those that we haven't had on the podcast yet. We've had Marie Forleo, and I guess you said Jenna Kutcher, and I think you said Amy Porterfield, maybe. That's funny. Well, I like what you mentioned there, and I think we often tell people come up with your title last, because when you come up with the title first, you write the book that fits the title, and when you come up with the title last, you write the book that needs to be written, and then you create the title around what you wrote, right? Which I think is
I wish you would have told me that.
What you did. And so it's cool to see. I mean, you did that, right? You wrote the book that needed to be written, and then you found the title in the process, which I think is really, really cool. So talk to me about, like, it almost feels like we haven't caught up. It's been a hot minute, but it almost feels like you're living out some of the things in this book, because as a fly on the wall, I see, like, okay, you guys sold the Super Connector agency. It seems like you've maybe still got the online education piece, but then simultaneously you've been doing a lot of speaking on your own. I go to the website today. I'm like, holy cow, this website's incredible. The book looks great. Like, it feels like there's like this, your kind of personal brand kind of emerging. I mean, I guess for context, for those who don't know you personally, have had a business with your husband, and like, you guys have been doing a bunch of stuff together, and then now it feels like, all right, cool, that's still happening and that's still thriving, but then also building your brand within that. So kind of a lot of preamble to just say, what has this transition been like for you, and how do you feel like you're living out some of the things that you talk about in the book?
It's been so scary, so fun, at the same time. I mean, it's scary as shit. I read my own book every day during the process of launching this book, because I need the tools that are in that book to consistently be seen with fear in the passenger seat of my damn car, because it's not easy to put yourself out there on that level. But I made a promise to myself after that lady told me that I needed to be seen. And I really checked in with myself, because I felt like there was something that was missing. I was very fulfilled. We had a successful business, but I knew in my heart that there was, I'm a performer. I love nothing more than to be on stage. I was being on stage, but I wasn't pushing. I wasn't creating enough. I wasn't letting people really in, and I wasn't truly connecting. I was being, again, a little bit inauthentic. I just felt it, and that will always keep you stuck. And so I made a promise to myself when I was writing that book. I was like, I'm also going to make my word of the year content. I'm going to produce an absurd amount of content every single day, no matter what. And I'm going to allow the world to really see me for the first time. And I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to get on stages, even if I feel like I don't deserve to be there. Even if I have imposter syndrome, I'm going to pitch myself to stages, even if I feel like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm too scared to do this. I don't feel like I can be there. I'm going to get unbelievably uncomfortable, and I'm going to do this. And I made a conscious decision. And along this journey of writing this book while building this brand, I literally took, I'm not telling anybody to do anything that I didn't actually do in the real moments of this, and everything that I learned as well as an actress building that career, because I think a lot of the biggest entrepreneurial lessons I've ever learned were during my acting career, lessons about rejection and persistence and what not to do, what not to do when it comes to being seen and building a brand when you're faking it and you're pretending to be somebody that you're not. And so, I mean, I guess what my answer to you is, yes, I've been living out what this book is specifically over the past year while writing it and now marketing it and allowing it to be seen to the world is like really at the peak of it. And
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be a little peak that will turn into an even bigger peak because I'm not done yet.
Yeah, for sure. So meta.
So meta.
That's fun. I want to go back to the agency piece. Like, was that an intentional part of this, or was that totally unrelated? Where you're like, hey, let's sell the agency. It was that, hey, I feel like I need to kind of, move on from that to be able to launch this more of a personal brand piece, or how did you guys kind of come to the decision for that?
Something fun about me and Chris is we're quick starts. We're visionary type people. We are not strategic planners. Nothing that we plan really ever happens the way that we plan it. We just kind of do things. And we are, we do things on feeling, we do things fast. And no, it was not intentional like that at all. It really, what was happening was we had this really successful agency. It was very profitable, but we built that agency by accident. We never planned to build an agency. We built an agency because someone came to us and said, hey, I don't want to do done with you. I want to do done for you. Will you do it for me? We said, sure, we can do it for you. Started doing it for that person, started crushing it. Then someone else wanted us to do it for them. And then before we knew it, we had a huge agency and it was very profitable and very successful. And we didn't really ever want one, nor did we really love it, but we're like, this is working. Let's keep going. And, and I talk to so many entrepreneurs where this has happened. And then we wake up one day and we have this arm of our company that we like, but we don't love. And then the other side of our company that we were doing simultaneously was the education, the events, and empowering and teaching entrepreneurs to be able to get themselves out there, not just in mainstream media, but to build profitable brands, to be seen on social, to create authentic relationships that are win-win collaborations and getting themselves that credibility, that influence and authority, and really being seen and being visible. And we were watching our students get on Good Morning America and the Today Show and get on the biggest podcast and build brands and get these followers and all of these things happening for them and building $1 million businesses. And we were like, this is what we love. We love empowering and teaching people to be able to do it on their own and what happens as a result of that. And so we were like not passionate about the agency that much anymore. And we decided, we were like, what could happen? This was a really difficult decision to make, Chandler, because when you have a successful company that's doing great, it's like getting rid of it is hard. So what could happen to our lives and us, like as humans and our company, if we took all of the energy that we're spending on something that we don't really love that much and put it into something that we did? And so we made a decision very quickly and we're like, we're going to sell the agency. And that was it.
Looking back,
that's mine. Sorry. Look at that.
I could barely hear it though. Looking back, are you glad that you did?
Yeah. Yeah, unbelievably glad that we did. Yeah. Yes, for sure. I love my company now because we always talk about like spending the majority of your time in your zone of genius, and nobody's ever going to be in their zone of genius full time. I mean, I don't think that that's possible. Maybe it gets to that point, and when I do get to that point, I'm going to call you. I'm going to be like, oh my God, Chandler, I'm 100% in my zone of genius. But I'd like to get there as close as I possibly can. And for me, what I love to do is teach and speak and empower and be with people and be that force of inspiration and be teaching what I'm doing constantly and not have to be necessarily managing teams. That's just not my zone. Yeah. So I'm so much happier here because it puts me back into that place that I'm the most in flow, or what I like to call in the book, I call it in the pocket. I'm in the pocket when I'm teaching. And so for our whole business to be education and events and me speaking and writing and creating content, I'm thrilled. It's so much more in alignment.
That's cool. I like that. And so guys, grab the book, Be Seen, find out how you can get in the pocket with your book and with your business. That's fun. I was going to ask you about that, but it sounds like we can dive into the book and kind of go on a self-discovery for people to figure out what that looks like for you, for your books, for your business. I don't know if you ever felt this way. I got one more question on just kind of this whole transition piece. I've had people kind of chasing me to acquire my company, and I've just keep turning it down. And I love what I'm doing, but I feel like there's this weird thing for me, and I'm curious if you've experienced this, which is like a lot of identity attached in this thing and a lot of security attached to this thing. So it's both kind of this dichotomy of like, okay, sure, I'm not selling right now because I feel like it is a little bit more in the pocket for me. And that is like a long-term thing. But then I also find myself, because there was moments in the sales process where like, okay, for any number, like, what about this number? What about this number? What about this number? And I'm like, oh shoot. I think I'm just being like kind of illogical now, because then you start to go through this, who am I if I'm not in my business, and this reinvention thing, and which I think some people do way better at than I do, which is like, oh, cool, this is exciting. I get to reinvent myself. I get this whole new kind of thing. And for me, it's like, oh man, like, I don't know, this is like really hard to build. Can I do it again? All that, like, did you go through any of that stuff as you were kind of selling, or was it just kind of like so obviously, all right, hey, we built up this agency, doesn't fit with where I want to be. Like, let's sell that off. We can keep the core business. And now we've got this new thing emerging.
Yeah, I think because we had the other piece of the company that I was so much more
Sure.
in. Like for you, it's like this is your one thing. Like for me,
Right.
I felt like I had two things. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had
Mm-hmm.
two things and I was bouncing back and forth between the two things. The agency pretty much ran itself
Ah.
and I was more so in
Mm-hmm.
the events and education, but I still had an agency and I still had to put energy there
Yeah.
and so it didn't really feel like that. But I will tell you
Mm-hmm.
that I get to talk to a lot of founders of startups. I get to talk to a lot of people who exit their companies, really big founders and have huge exits. And I will, if I could give you one piece of advice, here's what I would give you is to really, and I know you've been doing a good job at this, but I would double down on building that personal brand because here's what
Mm-hmm.
happens. I have seen business owners not build a personal brand and just build an unbelievably successful company. They put all their time and energy
Mm-hmm.
into building this superstar company. They get a huge exit for millions and millions and millions of dollars, sometimes billions. And then they want to go do something else. They want to raise again. They want to build something again, and they have zero audience. They have nobody following them for who they are as an entrepreneur. It's harder. And they don't also have that sense of, oh, I've got something else going on that I'm consistently creating content and doing and building. And I've got this audience that loves me for me, not just the company. They want to follow me for the expertise. And so I see people then try to build a personal brand after they've had the exit. It's a lot harder because there's a lot less content. How much more exciting is it to create content when you're building something to sell?
Mm-hmm.
So I tell every founder that's building something that possibly will have an exit, or even any founder at all in general, the best
Mm-hmm.
investment you can possibly make is in your personal brand because you will buy and sell companies and start and exit companies throughout your whole life. The one thing that you'll have the entire time, no matter what, is your audience that loves you for you and follows you for your personal brand that you've built. That is an
Mm-hmm.
asset. It's an asset that
Mm-hmm.
you own forever. I would start doubling down on that.
Yeah. That's great advice. It's great advice because then at a certain point that becomes what you bring to the deals.
Yes.
And in the early days, it's probably sweat equity, and then at some point maybe it's financing deals or that sort of thing. But the brand is this kind of intangible, high leverage thing that you're building that you can put behind your book, you can put behind your business, you can put behind whatever it is that you do. That's smart. That's really good advice. I hope you're loving this episode so far. So if you're serious about writing and publishing your book, we would love to chat with you and help create a custom plan. All right. So all you need to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. Schedule a 45-minute consultation with one of the experts on my team. All right. Let's implement what you're learning in this episode and let's see how we can help with your book. Go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. I want to talk about, kind of the core of your book, right?
Yeah.
Be seen, find your voice, build your brand, live your dream. One interesting, I didn't even know this about you until I was preparing for this interview. VH1 host for 5 years, Broadway actress. I was telling you right beforehand, it's funny timing. I'm headed to New York tomorrow. I'm be going to see a Broadway show tomorrow night, surprising my girlfriend there.
Amazing.
She doesn't know. By the time this episode comes out, the surprise will be out. So
Yeah. You'll have seen it and loved it. And yeah.
So it's a funny kind of a small world moment, but like what from your time at VH1 and your time on Broadway as an actress, you kind of alluded to this earlier, where you're like, hey, I learned some of my best business lessons during that time. How do you feel like that helped you live out some of the things that you're talking about in this book? Getting clear on your message, like finding your voice, all those things.
Yeah, because I did it all wrong. So this thing on VH1 that I did was 5 years on a TV show all about heavy metal music. My name on the show was Jennifer, obviously, but I was called Miss Box of Junk. I was the hot prize chick on this show that was very popular for people that loved heavy metal music. And I would bring out this box of junk and people would like pick the prizes out of my box of junk. And I would do this whole segment with this board where they would pick the bands and I would help them pick the bands. I was the heavy metal girl. And if you Google me, you will see platinum blonde hair. You will see super, super tan. You will see every rocker concert t-shirt known to man ripped and cut up that I would sell on eBay after I wore the shirts and all these things. It was a brand. It was a vibe. It couldn't have been further away from who I truly was. And I had this job, and it was weird because I wasn't playing a character. I was myself because it was a talk show, but I had to keep this face up that was metal chick, and I had to pretend I loved heavy metal music. And so when you're doing that and you're showing up inauthentically, you attract people that like you for what you're showing up as. So I built this audience and this brand and this whole thing predicated on a gigantic lie. And I was out of alignment, and that is what kept me up at night every night. Like, I was out of alignment in my business. I was being an actress, but also in my personal life. I was attracting the wrong people. I was in a toxic relationship. I was severely depressed. I was bulimic. I was using too many drugs and alcohol and all the things bad. It was spiraling in a really bad way because I felt in my heart, it was just like this constant nag, like, this isn't you. And what are you even going to do? Who are you anyway? Like, what are you going to do when this all ends? You're a metal girl. That's not even who you are. There's a lot of fear around that. There's a lot of uncertainty around that. And then I truly believe that when you're out of alignment and you can't do it yourself, if you can't get yourself back into alignment, I believe from experience also that the universe, God, whatever it is you believe in, some kind of source outside of you will come in and smack you back into alignment. And a lot of the times it's not going to be very fun and it's going to hurt. And everything got taken from me in a very short amount of time. The show got canceled. The guy thought I was going to marry left me for one of my friends. And I'd been such a mess that I'd spent all my money and I had really nothing left. And I found myself with no show, no relationship, and living in like this tiny little room and in this apartment with 6 other actors with a window that faced a wall. And I didn't know who I was or what I was going to do. And that was like the shit to shift moment. And that was where I really had to look at my life. And you'll appreciate this story because this is a book story, not a story in the book, a story about the book, which is crazy. Well, I love to tell you that in that moment, I was like, yay, I know who I am and I'm going to get into personal development. And I was like a phoenix rising from the ashes and everything was great. No, I spiraled even deeper and darker and it was very bad. And my mom had to come into the city and like revive me. And my mom is a reader and very much into personal development. And I wasn't at all at that time. And so she knew it. So she had to be really careful with this. But we're at this Italian restaurant. We're at dinner. I'm crying. She takes out this book and she gives it to me. And the book is You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, a book full of affirmations. And I look at this book and I'm like, my mom knows I'm not going to read it. And she's like, just open the book when you get home. So I go home, I open the book, and my mom photocopied one of the affirmations that she wanted me to read because she knew I wasn't going to read the book. And on the back of the photocopy, it said, Jenny, I hope you find yourself again. So I looked at this photocopy of this affirmation and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to read this book, but I'll read this stupid affirmation. I will just read this every day. And I put it on my refrigerator and I made a promise to myself, the first promise to myself that I'd ever made. I'm going to read this every single day, no matter what. And I don't know if it was the affirmation itself getting into my head and me saying it out loud, or I think it was this. It was the sticking with the commitment that I made with myself every day to actually read something and show up for myself and do something that gave me that dopamine hit. I feel good. I did that. That slowly but surely helped get me out the door and helped me find out what I was going to do and build my first business and get on the floor of Barnes and Noble and read every personal development book known to man and listen to every podcast and get out there and meet my husband and build my company and help 40,000 entrepreneurs. Like, all these things stemmed from that repetitive action of reading that one affirmation in the beginning. Now, here's what's crazy. I wanted my book to be traditionally published. I had an agent. I knew I wanted a traditional publisher. And we were doing the thing where we were shopping the book, all the publishers, getting some rejections, getting some no's, getting some, this is just not the fit for me. The last publisher that we were to talk to on the calendar, I look, I'm like, oh, Hay House. Louise Hay created one of the biggest publishers for personal development books that there is right now. They're crushing it. She's no longer with us, but it's a publisher that's doing very well. A lot of our friends have published with them, Lewis Howes and Mel Robbins and Brendan Bouchard and Amy Porterfield. And I get on this call with them. And all of a sudden, the story of Louise Hay and the affirmation comes out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh my God, everyone's crying. And of course, Hay House is like, yes. And they're my publisher.
Yes.
So it, like, all the dots always connect. And the last section of my book is all about connecting the dots. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I want to give you one more story, which answers your question in a really big way. When I was younger, my dream was to be an actress. I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to be on TV. I thought that was my purpose. And for everyone listening, if you have that dream that doesn't work out, I want you to just pay attention to the little dots that are connecting you to something even bigger and better. Because I have to talk about my dad a little bit now. My dad was my biggest fan when I was an actor, or he's still my biggest fan, but like every show I was ever in, he was always like in the front row, like biggest fan of me ever in the world. Like, you're going to be a star. I believe it. So he was there along the whole journey of me, not getting the part and having to play the understudy and then getting the part and then being on the Broadway show and then being in, everything. He was there the whole way. And then when I stopped acting and I started becoming an entrepreneur and I started speaking on stage, which is so much better to me than acting. And really living out my purpose where I get to choose myself and I get to say my own words and I get to actually like pay myself essentially and get paid a hell of a lot more money than acting to be on stages and host my own events. So much more in the pocket, feels so much more fulfilling to me than acting. My dad has never actually been able to see me do that because my dad has multiple sclerosis and he can't travel. So while he's been able to be in every front row of every show I've been in, he never got to see me speak. So last year I got to speak in Florida where he lives and I got invited to do this really big real estate event and speak in front of all these real estate investors. And my dad walks with a cane. He's like, Jenny, I do not care how big that casino is. I'm going to walk with my cane all the way to that event and I'm going to sit in the front row and watch you speak. So my dad's sitting in the front row of this talk and I've got all these big real estate investors like visualizing and crying and like I'm moving, and my dad is sitting there bawling his eyes out. And I get off stage and we get in the car and we're driving home. And my dad looks at me and he goes, this is what it was all for. It all makes sense now. All of it, all the acting classes, all of the driving you into the city when you were a kid to do the singing lessons and the dancing lessons, all of the auditions that you didn't get, everything. It was all for this. So you could do this thing. Who knew? You can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect them looking backwards. So really, if you think that you're not there yet, that's okay. It's probably just these little steps are leading you to something bigger that you don't even know exists yet.
That's cool. Yeah. And that destination, you might not even know what that destination is or
I didn't know.
what it is. Yeah. It's really interesting. I feel like a lot of times that shows up in books. We always talk about that where it's like a book is this key that opens the door to Narnia. That is this magical world that you didn't know existed. But then, all of these opportunities start coming up and you just kind of maximize. I think the thing that I really took away from that is maximize the opportunity that's right in front of you and take the next step. Yeah. And what is after that will unveil itself in due time. Right. And it's, my parents always told me growing up is they had this saying of like, bloom where you're planted. It's like if you're sweeping floors, be the best floor sweeper that ever exists.
I love that.
It doesn't matter what you're doing, bloom where you're planted. And then somebody's going to notice. And that's going to lead to the next thing is going to lead to the next thing is going to lead to the next thing. And so I feel like that's kind of a perfect segue to talking about this, the speaking side of things. I'd love to get practical on the speaking side because I'm very curious personally and for our listeners. How are you booking all these speaking gigs? Like, how in the world do you do this? What's your secret?
Okay, I will tell you. It starts with relationships. Opportunities come from people. I spent a lot of time, and I still do, going to masterminds, going to events, attending places where there were speakers, attending events, being part of groups, being part of communities where I knew that there were people there that hosted events that could help me get events. So I was spending, and I still do, I'm not even going to say was anymore because I'm constantly spending a good amount of my time creating relationships. The third part of the book is called Be Connected. And there's a whole section around how to be a master asker and how to ask for help and how to provide value first. It's all about thinking about how you can consistently provide value to other people to create amazing relationships so that when an opportunity does come around, if they know that you want to be a speaker, they're going to be shouting your name from the rooftops. Cool. The second thing that I did while simultaneously making all these relationships with people is I told people that I wanted to speak. As scary as that is, talk about your dreams out loud. And I know people like to keep their dreams close to them because it's scary to state them out loud. Like I will go around and say, I want to be the greatest motivational speaker of all time. That scares me even saying it to you right now. Who's judging me, who's saying, how dare she say that? But I go around saying that. And then when people hear about, oh, we need a speaker for this event. I know Jen's speaking. She wants to speak. She's speaking everywhere. Like she wants to be a speaker and she's helped me so much. So I'll connect you. The third thing that I've been doing is all about being seen. I create an insane amount of content of me speaking on stages. I want to be a speaker, so I need to show people that I'm speaking. So whatever that is for you when you're listening, what do you want to do? Be seen doing it all the time. Create content of you doing that thing. I will never show up to a speaking engagement without a videographer with me there that I brought myself so I can get that content immediately and create more content of me speaking. So those are the three things. Relationships. Every single speaking engagement I've ever gotten has come from a person that I've built a relationship with. And number two is talking about the fact that you want to speak and telling everybody that you want it because people don't know and they won't ask you if they don't know that you do want it, saying your dreams out loud. And then number three is creating an insane amount of content of you doing that thing. And then all in all, be consistent with all three of those steps. Be consistent. Don't just do it once, do it all the time. And before you know it, and then you got to crush it. Of course, you got to be a
Mm-hmm.
good speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yeah.
then you will definitely be on your way. I don't know why this is
Yeah.
on.
It's like
That was
promoting
my
a
speaker
book. I
agent.
mean, what's that?
That was my speaker agent calling me just now. I swear to
So let
God.
me ask you, what percentage of these gigs are you booking personally or versus is being booked by an agent or someone else?
I would say 98% is me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just booked 2 this year because maybe that's the second one from an
Mm-hmm.
agent and calling me
Mm-hmm.
right now. So the majority of them are me. I'm not signed exclusively to an agent because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that just yet. But I
Yeah.
have an awesome agent that reached out to me because he saw what I
Mm-hmm.
was doing and he's like, I'd love to
Mm-hmm.
just kind of get you in the ring
Mm-hmm.
with some of these bigger stages.
And I'm assuming not signed exclusive to an agent. I mean, I'm assuming we have a similar thought process, which is that only makes sense if you're bringing the majority of the opportunities. And so if I'm going to be signed an exclusive and you're bringing the minority of the opportunities, well, then now all the ones that I'm booking are going through you. So it just, that kind of the thought process, but behind not just going, all right, speaking agency exclusive or something like that.
Well, I was actually coached by, I have a coach, a speaker coach, and she coached me not to go exclusive with an agent for a very, very, very long time with
Mm,
speaking. It's much
mm,
different industry than like acting. When
right.
I was acting, I really wanted to be exclusive with an agent, but when you're exclusive with a speaker agent, it's different because there's a lot of bureaus. And once you sign exclusively with one agent, then you can't have any other bureaus book you and you're kind of
Oh,
screwed. So you'll
mm,
actually get less
yeah.
opportunity than more opportunity if you're signed exclusively. So that's what I
Mm-hmm.
learned. And so I'm just going to take that advice
Mm-hmm.
I'm, I guess, in the point where I'm ready to be exclusive with someone. But right now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
Cool. Yeah, that's smart. That makes sense. We're in the home stretch here. Couple final questions. What would you say? Because we're kind of a little bit behind the scenes of the launch here. What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that you're doing to launch this book successfully?
Well, lots of podcasts. Podcasts are definitely a really big needle mover. I'm going to LA next week to do a whole bunch of in-person ones. The thing that I'm enjoying the most is my street team. I have a B Scene street team, and it's a launch team of people that are in my community that can't wait to help me promote the book. And we're having so much fun together. We're doing contests, we do
That's
monthly
cool.
calls. I take them behind the scenes of the book launch, and they are so jazzed and competing with each other in a friendly competition to be able to like get the book out in the best way, create amazing content. So that's super super fun. That's one of the things that we're doing. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
podcasts. We're tying it in. So here's the thing, Chandler. It's interesting because it's promoting a book, as you know, is like its own business in itself. It is
Right.
literally like you should quit your job to promote a book in the way that they tell you should promote a book. Like I'm like I have a
Mm-hmm.
job. I can't promote this. So a lot of this is mindset. A lot of it is mindset because there's all the things that I want to do. There's so many people that will tell me the best strategy to promote a book. You got to do it this way. You got to do it this way. You got to do it this way. And in the beginning, I had so many cooks in the kitchen. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do all these things and run my business at the same time and make money at the same time, right? Because we all know we don't make money from books when we're promoting books. It's really like a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother job. So I really had to sit back and say, I'm going to make this fun and I'm going to do it my
Mm-hmm.
way. And I'm going to do what I love to do for this book launch. And I know that I've got a great book and I'm just going to focus on getting it in the hands of as many people as possible so that they can read it and talk about it and get it in the hands of as many other people as possible. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's like whatever feels fun and good for me, I'm going to double down on. And I know that all my friends have all these incredible, amazing strategies and we can
Mm.
only do so much what we
Yeah.
can do. I'm sure there will be a big book launch virtual event at the like right in that week. I'm sure there will be a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Instagram lives in that week.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to just have fun with it and not take it too crazy. I don't want to get too stressed out. I know a lot of friends that really went down a dark path of stress. And I don't want that to happen. So
Yeah.
I'm like, let's make this easy and fun. I'm writing a book. I'm not curing cancer. It's all good.
I like that. I like that.
You're laughing because
Yeah,
you're in this
yeah,
industry. You get it.
yeah, for sure, for sure. But I also like that I'm writing a book. I'm not curing cancer. This is the funny line. But it's funny. I was talking to Noah Kagan the other day, and he called me up and he's like, "All right, what do I need to do? Like, what are the couple of things?" And we're talking through probably like a lot of conversation. You have a lot of friends. It's like, all right, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. There's also this, and then at the end, it was just kind of like, but hey man, that there's one or two things that are going to really move the needle. So my best advice is to not try to do all these things, but to pick one or two that's in your zone of genius, and preferably something that you're already good at and already doing, and then maximize the focus in that, which seems to be the way that you're doing. And I like the focus on fun too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask one last question, then we'll wrap up. Would be, well, I guess two. First would be what would be your parting piece of advice, kind of knowing what you know now, like to the Jen from multiple years ago before you started on this journey, and the other Jens who are maybe thinking about writing their first book and being seen through writing and publishing a book?
Start before you're ready. When I look back at this whole process and I look at what worked, I literally started before I felt ready. When I woke up and I turned to Chris and I said, I'm writing a book, I pulled out my journal and I hand wrote an introduction to the book. That is not the introduction that you'll read today. It's terrible, but I have it handwritten. And then I immediately opened up my computer and bought a domain for $3,000 of the title that I thought it was going to be, that it is not. It was the title before Superconnector. It was another title. I just started. But here's the thing, that messy action kickstarted my momentum. If I waited until it was perfect and I had the perfect introduction and the perfect title and the perfect outline and the perfect everything, I probably would still be in the knee deep in the process, or maybe still thinking about it, maybe not even having the book. But I just started the process. I allowed it to be messy. I allowed myself to have terrible chapters that I completely threw away. I allowed myself to have a title that was not the title. I allowed myself to have the domain that I spent a lot of money on that was not the domain. I allowed myself to completely like redo a whole entire section and redo the last part and reconfigure everything. And I think that with writing a book, as you probably know, this is your business. Like, it's the first draft is always the crappiest. And that goes with every single step. Every step is going to be bad. You don't get clear from thinking about it. You get clear from doing. So if you have a goal, just do it. Let it be messy, let it be imperfect, and learn from that messiness and that imperfection and those failures and those mess ups to make it better. But the faster you start, the faster you'll get it done.
Man, couldn't agree more. And get the rough draft done, right? You can't publish a book without having a rough draft. And you can't have a rough draft if you don't start and be okay with, we talk about a lot of times, it's like clearing your throat. Like that introduction that was just clearing your throat, getting ready to say the thing that you actually wanted to say in the book. Jen, this has been awesome. So much fun. Where can people go to get a copy of the book? Be Seen comes out October 31st. Where can people go to grab a copy of the book, find out more about you and what you're up to?
They can go to beseenbook.com. That is the place, because you can get it anywhere, but all the links are right there on that website. So just go there and pick whatever you want to get it. And then you can put your order number into the little thing where you type your name in on that page and you'll get goodies. So go to beseenbook.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all the places. You can find me.
Cool. beseenbook.com. Check it out. Love it. I hadn't even seen this page. This looks great.
Oh, you just see my book page for the first time?
Yeah. I saw your website earlier. I'm like, this website is incredible. And I love the book cover with a light up. It's just a small touch, but it just looks so good. Well, guys, go to beseenbook.com, beseenbook.com. Grab a copy of the book. Jen, you rock. Thanks so much.
You rock. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you could be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help this podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode.